The 2025 NFL schedule is starting to leak and release. We now know every international NFL game that will be played in 2025. And in this video, I will not only discuss and preview each game, but I'm going to pick each game straight up and versus the early spread for all 7 international NFL games this season. So if you're with me and that sounds good, Gronk, spike the like button. It helps the channel and it helps other crazy NFL fanatics just like you find the bottom line view, because I will be covering every team's schedule, predicting every NFL game, breaking down the top games of 2025. So, subscribe, jabroni, and let's get to it with the 7 international games and my picks for each one. Now, first, the games themselves. We have a game in Brazil, week 1, Friday, September the 5th, the day after my birthday, by the way. This will be a game that is just like last year. We had the Eagles and the Packers, which actually ended up being a playoff preview. This game will be the Chiefs and the Chargers. Probably the best matchup we'll see all year. Brazil is getting that game. The Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That will begin the rest of the international schedule and slate in week 4, and it will end with the Washington Commanders and the Miami Dolphins in week 11 in Spain. So an exciting slate. We have Berlin, Madrid, London, Dublin, and, of course, we're headed back to Brazil in week 1. So let's kick it off with the first game, which is the Chargers and the Chiefs. Now, this hasn't exactly been made absolutely official yet, so I don't think the spread has actually been decided on this one, but Travis Kelce did kind of already spoil that the Chiefs will be playing the Chargers in week 1, and it's been heavily reported and indicated that this will be the matchup in Brazil in week 1, and I'm pumped for it. We're going to see a new and improved Chargers team with a Chiefs team fresh off a Super Bowl loss. How will they respond to a Super Bowl hangover early in the season? Okay, we're going to have the Travis Kelce, maybe Taylor Swift experience internationally. That's something a little different. That should be fun. And this is also a chance for the Chargers in a neutral site game, where if any team has an advantage in a neutral site game, it's probably the Chargers, because they barely have fans at their own home games. So that being said, the Chargers should have some sort of advantage, but the Chiefs have played in plenty of Super Bowls as well, and plenty of international games, and also neutral venue games. So both teams will have experience with a lack of fandom on each side. It'll be interesting to see which side actually gets the cheers, which side actually gets the chance, right? I think the Chiefs would probably be the more popular team, but I could be wrong. But when it comes to all of these matchups, that's also an interesting thing to think about and talk about when it comes to which team is actually the more popular team, because that actually plays a pretty significant role in how each team responds on game day and the energy, right? Because of the time zones and that difference and everything there. But when it comes to the game, I think that the Chargers are going to come in and they're going to try to run the football with their new two-headed monster in Najee Harris and, of course, Hampton, who they picked in the first round. It'll be interesting to see how much they can get out of rookie Trey Harris at wide receiver. And their new offensive line is definitely going to be one that I'm going to watch early in the season. Mekhi Becton added to the mix with Slater and Alt on the edges at tackle. I think the Chargers definitely could give the Chiefs a really good game here, right? I think the Chiefs might be on their toes a little bit. I think this is going to be a one-score game. It's going to come down to the last possession. It's going to come down to a game-winning field goal or a game-winning touchdown. When you're talking about the opposite side of the football, I think it's going to be compelling to watch the new receiving core for the Chiefs. Rashee Rice back from injury. How ready to go will he be? How good will he look early? Worthy and Hollywood Brown for the entire season there. Of course, Kelsey will be fresh off of the offseason. And then the new look offensive line for the Chiefs might be good, but it might also give them issues early in the year. Who will they start at left tackle? I assume it will be more from the 49ers, who they signed in free agency, as opposed to Simmons, who's still working his way back from injury. Pacheco also working his way back from injury. So some questions offensively for the Chiefs, but this is a team with Andy Reid that's usually well prepared early in the season, has a couple tricks up their sleeve. Typically, from an offensive perspective, has a couple new wrinkles, a couple new plays. I'd expect that to be the case. I actually could see this being a relatively high-scoring game where the Chargers are trying to slow things down and run the football and possess the ball and go on long, deliberate drives, while the Chiefs might be hitting some explosives against the Chargers, but I could also see the Chargers creating some pressure on Mahomes to where they could get some stops. So this one will be really close. I think I'm leaning towards the Chiefs to win this game just due to their experience in these venues, their experience in these games, in these spotlight, big atmosphere games. And they just have a lot of experience. Plus, it's Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid with a full offseason to prepare for a spotlight game. So I'm leaning towards Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to get this one finished and a W in the win column. But I could see an upset. I wouldn't be that shocked by it. I think the Chargers are definitely going to be better this year. And some people even think the Chargers will be better than the Chiefs. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I will lean towards the Chiefs here in Brazil. Our only game in Brazil. Okay. Hopefully the field is better, by the way, than last year, because that was absolutely ridiculous with the Packers and the Eagles. The second matchup internationally will be the Vikings and the Steelers. This will be played in Week 4 at Croke Park in Dublin, Ireland. The Vikings are favored. We have a release in terms of the spread here. -1.5, technically as the away team, okay? So the Steelers are technically the home team. Now, I don't exactly know if this number would flip if Aaron Rodgers were to be the quarterback for the Steelers, if this number is currently an indication of Rodgers actually being the quarterback, if this is an indication on, kind of a middle for the books here of saying, like, we're not really sure yet. So this number's kind of in this weird range of like -1.5. It's not quite near 3 yet on either side. So I could actually see the Steelers being flipped to a favorite if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. But at the same time, I could also see the Vikings being favored if the books simply don't believe that Rodgers is still any good. And the Vikings just being the more talented overall team. So yeah, this is a weird one from a spread perspective and even a prediction perspective because we don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be the Steelers quarterback, if he's not going to be the Steelers quarterback, if Mason Rudolph's going to be the Steelers quarterback. Like, we don't really know. So that's kind of difficult. But I'm going to assume, I'm obviously projecting and making predictions. I'm assuming that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Steelers and be their quarterback. And I think when we break this game down, we saw Rodgers play the Vikings last year. It didn't go too well with the Jets. I felt like there was a lot of pressure, and Brian Flores found a way to get a lot of hits on Rodgers and make him really uncomfortable and to make him make mistakes, to throw the ball a little bit earlier than he wanted to, and to force him into some bad decisions. Although I felt like Rodgers still kind of did dice up the Vikings zone coverage quite often down the stretch of that game and actually make that game relatively interesting. But man, I feel like the Steelers are going to try, obviously, to play that physical brand of football. The Vikings have built up their offensive line really significantly. I think they'll be able to block for J.J. McCarthy. You think about Christian Darrisaw and O'Neal on the right and the left, and you think about how they've reinforced their offensive line, and early in the season, they should be healthy, you would expect. Donovan Jackson slotting in there at guard, Will Fries, and then Ryan Kelly. And then they're having to block, of course, Cam Hayward, Harmon added to the mix with Watt and Highsmith. That's going to be the marquee matchup of this game. I don't think the Steelers can truly cover Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, and all the options that the Vikings can offer. So McCarthy might have to be leaned on to win this game through the passing game. I don't see the Vikings being able to run the ball that effectively on the Steelers. On the other side, I think the Vikings pressure and pressure packages and blitzes could be pretty key to this game. Rodgers, if he is the quarterback, is going to have to decipher that quickly and get the ball out. Well, I don't really feel like the Steelers have a ton of options to truly just dink and dunk and dice the Vikings. I mean, they don't have a lot of great options underneath. They're going to have to run the ball a little bit. That being said, the Vikings have reinforced their interior defensive line. I think in a neutral site game, I'm leaning towards the more talented team with the slightly better preparation skills and coaching and game plan, offensive and defensive coordinator. And I'm going to go with the Vikings here. Just slightly. I think the game will be actually probably lower scoring. I'd probably lean towards like a 21-17 type of vibe. But I do think the Vikings are the team that should be favored here, regardless of Steeler quarterback. That's the direction I'm going to lean. Our first London action is going to be in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That is London, England. The Vikings are going back-to-back in Europe, which is crazy. Now, the travel isn't too crazy. At least it's Ireland to England. It's not that bad, okay? And they get a whole week there. And at least they're already adjusted somewhat to that atmosphere and to the time zones, I guess a little bit better. I don't know if that's actually an advantage or a disadvantage. I guess it would be an advantage for the Vikings for the back-to-back in Europe. But at the same time, I feel like it's a disadvantage later in the schedule. So I think that's why the Vikings are such heavily favored in this game. I mean, they're heavy favorites. They're -7 according to the books right now. That's ESPN bet, by the way. That's laying a -7. So this game's weird because of that. Now, who's the Browns quarterback? Is the Browns quarterback going to be Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, or Shedeur Sanders? I kind of think it won't be Shedeur Sanders, and I kind of think it will be rather Dylan Gabriel in a surprise preseason performance or Joe Flacco. But by week 5, it could be Kenny Pickett, and I wouldn't be that surprised either. So it depends on whether they go with the young quarterback or the older quarterback. I don't know if it really matters. I don't know if I can really bake too much into that, honestly. The Vikings, though, are the much more, I think, like, talented team. I think the Browns do have a very good defense. They do have a very good defensive line. Their offensive line is pretty solid, but they don't have a lot of weapons. And I think the big mismatch here would be that just the Browns, whoever their quarterback is, having to take on Brian Flores. I think that's the biggest mismatch in this game, is like, how does that quarterback go about deciphering those tricky coverages, those simulated pressures, those blitzes? That is the challenge for me. Right? The Browns, they have a good defense, and they could give J.J. McCarthy some problems. But again, just like the Steelers, the Vikings have an offensive line that can protect, I feel, young J.J. McCarthy. Kevin O'Connell's very smart with his play calling. And Jim Schwartz is a kind of vanilla play caller defensively. He's kind of easy to figure out. He's sometimes overly aggressive. Sometimes he relies too much on a four-man rush. And a lot of times he's playing man coverage, which is going to be difficult against the Vikings. I would lean towards the Vikings here because they're situated in London, in the United Kingdom, in Europe already. So that's a big deal. And then at the same time, I just do not have a lot of confidence in the Browns as an offense against Brian Flores. And at the same time, I don't know who the quarterback is, and I don't know if I really like whatever option they're going to go with. So again, this could be, if the Browns defense shows up, it could be a wild one. It could be a wacky one. But I think the Vikings are going to have an advantage going into this one because of that staying in Europe and being able to be prepared already for what they have to offer. So I'm going to go Vikings here. -7. I mean, I'm going to lean towards Minnesota to win by like 10 to 14 points. But I could be wrong about this. I don't know. This one is a tricky one because of, again, the wild cards of, you're talking about Steelers and Vikings quarterback situations. We've never seen JJ and Aaron Rodgers. Is he there? Is he not? The Browns, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. And the Vikings, again, JJ McCarthy is a wild card. So these first two are really difficult to bet and really difficult to kind of predict. But I'm going to lean towards the Vikings in both matchups. I have faith that the Vikings will be a talented team that's well coached. And I think their defense will be the reason they win these games. Next, the Broncos at the Jets. The Broncos are 6-point favorites. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, London, England, once again. So, I think the Jets suck. Now, the Jets are technically the home team. The Broncos are the away team. Once again, being played in London here. I think that the Broncos have the significantly more experienced coaching staff, Vance Joseph on defense, Sean Payton on offense, Sean Payton head coach, as compared to Aaron Glenn and a first-time staff having to deal with the expectations of playing in London, the spotlight of playing in London, and then the travel and all that they're inexperienced with. So that's a difficulty. On top of that, it's Bo Nix, who's clearly better than Justin Fields. At the same time, I think the Broncos have a pretty savage defense, especially week 6. Maybe there'll be some injuries, but they should be relatively healthy. And then offensively, I just think the Broncos are incredibly well schemed to the point where they'll be able to take advantage of Aaron Glenn's over-aggression, whether it be through some screen passes or the occasional, just great route concept from Sean Payton. So I'm going to lean towards Broncos to win, Broncos to cover. I think they are the better team here, and it's a neutral site. I think they'll be more prepared. I think they'll be coming out firing, and I think this is a big Bo Nix game in Week 6 against the Jets. Pretty simple. Next up, the Rams at Jacksonville. Jacksonville, of course, the home team. This is like their second home, although they only play one game this year in London. It's in Wembley Stadium, which is pretty fun. London, England. The Rams are favored by only 3.5. That's interesting. I don't think Jacksonville deserves to be in this stratosphere. I don't think that Jacksonville is near 3.5 points worse from the Rams. I think they're like 6 or 7 in most scenarios. I think the only reason it's 3.5 is because Jacksonville is more conditioned for traveling to London. They're more used to it. Their players understand the situation, understand the travel. That being said, Liam Cohen is new to this. That being said, I've seen Jacksonville lay eggs in Wembley. I've seen them lay eggs in London, right? So I just think the Wembley vibe is going to be very fun. But at the same time, I'm going to go Rams just because as long as Stafford's healthy, I think the Rams are the much better team. I respect and count on Sean McVay enough to understand the proper preparation here for this game. They've been in playoff games. They've been in Super Bowls. I think they'll have proper preparation. Again, with the Rams, they're going to be difficult to figure out from an injury perspective. But this one will be fun. I mean, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas. You got some weaponry, some big names there. Stafford and Lawrence. This could be a bit of a shootout. I wouldn't be that surprised. The Rams pass rush, though, could provide some problems for Trevor Lawrence and that offensive line. And also, I don't know how Jacksonville's defense consistently is slowing down the Rams through the air. I don't really see that. I need to see some improvement from their defense, okay? So I'm going to take the much better team, in my opinion. That is the Rams. The Falcons at the Colts. This one is interesting. This is Olympic Stadium in Berlin, Germany, which will be fun. Only one game in Germany, I believe, this year, which kind of sucks. I thought Germany had a great vibe last year, and even the Tampa Bay game a couple years ago against Seattle. I think Germany fans really love the NFL and really into it, so I think that's a little surprising. Atlanta minus 2.5. Atlanta probably will be the better team with the better record. I don't know who the Colts quarterback is going to be by this point in the season. It probably will be Daniel Jones. I'm not going to lie. Whether it be because it's week 10 again, whether it be because it's an injury to Anthony Richardson or he's just not playing that well, I think Daniel Jones could be playing by that point. I think the Colts actually do give the Falcons some issues, though, in terms of they've got a strong offensive and defensive line. The Colts also have quite a few weapons to deal with in the passing game. I think the coaching is relatively even. I actually lean towards the Colts. I don't know what it is, but something's telling me to take the Colts here. And I haven't really taken an upset yet. So I'm going to take the Colts. They are designated the home team. I don't know. I'm just getting like this vibe. I'm taking the Colts. Maybe it's Daniel Jones. I don't know what it is. But I'm going to take the Colts here. Again, I have no strong preference either way. But I don't really know what Penix is going to be yet. I feel like he's going to be a solid quarterback, but I'm not sold he's going to be anything special. I do think the Colts can be even up front with the Falcons' offensive line to not allow Bijan to just feast on them. And again, I think the Colts have the better coaching staff. Lou Anarumo, Shane Steichen on defense and offense. And I think they have enough weapons to get it done on the other side of the ball. I think the Falcons will be the better team this year. I just have a feeling the Colts are going to win this game. So I'll take the +2.5 with the Colts as the underdog in this one. And then the final international matchup, Week 11. I wouldn't mind going to this one. The Commanders at the Miami Dolphins. This is in Madrid. Washington, -3. Miami, the home team. I'm not sure if Miami or maybe Miami is one of the more popular teams in Spain. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. The Commanders, I think, should be favored. I think will, by this point in the season, be the better team. I think Miami, by this point in the season, is typically wearing down. And I think Miami is going to be taken advantage of in terms of, this being said, this could be a really fun game. This could be a high-scoring game. If things go right and the teams are healthy, I mean, both teams have suspect defenses. I think the Commanders have more playmakers in the secondary. I think they have more ability to match up. I think they have the better defensive coaching. I think McDaniel and Cliff, though, putting on a show in Spain would be pretty fun. Tyreek Hill, right? Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun here. But I'm going to lean towards Commanders, taking Jaden Daniels over Tua, who may or may not be suited up for this game. It might be Zach Wilson by this point. I mean, who knows with that guy's injury history. I think the Commanders have the much better offensive line and ability to control the pace of the game that way. And I am worried about the Washington's ability to get pass rush, but I think they can scheme some things up because Miami's offensive line is not very good. Yeah, I'm going to go with Washington, although I could see this game being like a 27-24, 31-27 type of game. This could be landing on the number, Washington winning last-second field goal type of thing. This could be a really fun game in Week 11, and this could be a game where if Miami does win it, maybe they're a little bit better than we think. I don't think so, though. I think the Commanders are the better team, and I think they are the better coached and quarterbacked team. So, those are my international predictions, my very early international schedule predictions versus the spread and straight up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this breakdown and this preview of the international schedule. I'll be breaking down the rest of the NFL schedule as we get the full release, and I'll be going team by team for all 32 NFL teams and giving you my pick by pick, week by week. So don't forget to subscribe. Gronk, spike the like button. Show your love in the comments. It's Mitch. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.